Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Humbert here, and today we're going to be talking over multiplying binomials. So when we multiply binomials, there's actually two different ways you can do that. So I suggest pausing the video and writing down the different methods, and then I'm going to talk through them. So the first method is probably what your parents learn and is the most commonly kind of heard from students, and that's called the FOIL method. And it's called FOIL because what you're going to do is you're going to multiply the first terms, the outside terms, the inside terms, and the last terms. So notice FOIL. FOIL, first, outside, inside, last, and then you will combine like terms and put it into standard form. So those of you that are okay with, kind of keeping track of stuff in your head, this method will work okay. All right, but there's another method for students that maybe struggle to organize their work, and so this is a method that works really well for those guys. And so that method is to start by drawing your box. And then what you're going to do is you're going to line up each binomial on the side of the box and line up the like terms. Then you're going to multiply the terms into the box, write out the terms, combine like terms, and put it into standard form. So that sounds like a whole bunch of mobo jobo, but it'll make a lot more sense when we actually put it into practice. So let's go ahead and let's just start by doing this one by FOIL. So you're going to multiply the first terms. So I'm going to have x times x. So x to the first times x to the first is going to give me x squared. Then you're going to multiply the outside terms. So I'm going to take negative 4 times x, which is negative 4. That looks like a y. Which is negative 4x. And then I'm going to have to multiply the inside terms, which is negative 1 times x. So that's going to be negative 1x. And then multiply the last terms, which is negative 1 times negative 4, which gives me a positive 4. So then we need to write out all of our terms. So we have x squared minus 4x minus 1 plus 4. So now I need to combine my like terms. So I can take negative 4x, and that should have an x with it, and I can add it to a negative 1x. So then I'm going to get x squared. Negative 4x minus 1x is going to give me a negative 5x. And then I'm going to add 4 to it. Okay, so that's my final answer for number 6. Let's take a look at number 7. So the first thing we want to do is to draw our box. So since we're multiplying two binomials, it's going to be a 2 by 2 box. Those of you that are kind of science nerds, this is going to look a lot like a Punnett square. You're going to learn more about that in biology, but for those students that maybe already know what that is, it's going to kind of look like a Punnett square you would do for genetics. So we're going to line up our binomials, x plus 2, so I'm just going to write x2 and x and 5. So, okay, I didn't write the plus signs, that's because they're positive. And it doesn't matter, you could have flip-flopped and wrote x2 going down the side. As long as what's in the parenthesis is on the same side with the other thing in the parenthesis, it doesn't matter which one's vertical and which one's horizontal. Okay, so x to the first times x to the first is x squared. 2 times x is 2x. 5 times x is 5x, and 5 times 2 is 10. So those are all of our terms. So now we're going to take those terms out of the box and just write them all out. And now we can combine like terms. So I'm going to get x squared plus 2x plus 5x, which I can combine to give me 7x plus 10. So something I want to point out to you is in the box, the nice thing about using the box method is if you set it up, 90% of the time your diagonals are going to be like terms. So notice that my diagonal there caught the like terms. So that kind of saves you that step of writing out this part if you want to. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 3. So for number 3, I notice I have a 3 on the outside. So I need to distribute that in, and I'm only going to distribute it into one of the parentheses. So 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 1 is 3. So then I'm going to multiply that by 2x plus 1. Okay, so now I can use the box method or FOIL. Now, for this note video, I'm mainly going to stick to using the box method, but know that if you're more comfortable with FOIL, you are more than welcome to do that. So now I have 3x plus 3, and then down that is 2x plus 2. So now I need to multiply into the box. So 3x times 2x. Well, 3 times 2 is 6. X squared, or x to the first times x to the first is x squared. 2 times 3 is 6, and then we also need to tag along that x with it. 1 times 3x is 3x, and then 1 times 3 is 3. So again, noticing at that diagonal, those are going to be my like terms. So 6x squared isn't going to have a like term with it. But I notice that I have 6x and 3x that are like terms. So I can add 6 and 3, and that's going to give me 9x, okay? So notice that it's just x. When you add two like terms, you do not add the exponents. I repeat, you do not add the exponents. And then I'm going to add 3 here. So that's my final answer on number 3. So let's go ahead and let's try that on number 4. So when I write this one above the box, I want to carry the sign with it when it's negative. So unless I write the sign, I'm just going to assume that it's positive. So since this one has a negative, I need to make sure I write that in there. So now I need to multiply into the box. So x to the first times x to the first is x squared. Negative 1 times x is just negative x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 1 is going to be a positive 3. So now let's write out our terms. So I'm going to have x squared, and then again going down that diagonal. Negative x minus 3x is going to be a negative 4x. And then we're going to add 3 to that. Okay, so that's our final answer. Again, noticing when I added negative 1x and negative 3x, I didn't add the exponents. That stayed as just x, okay? So now let's take a look at multiplying a binomial squared. So there's an angry nun there for you. When you are multiplying a binomial squared, you can't just square both terms. So if you were to see something like this, that is a terrible parenthesis. Okay, a lot of students think that they can just distribute in and this becomes x squared minus 4 squared, but that is not the case. Okay, so we're going to actually take a look at what you need to do, but I want to make sure that it's really obvious that you don't do that. Okay, so let's take a look at an example. So when I have x plus 6 quantity squared, since the entire parenthesis is squared, that's actually the same as x plus 6 times x plus 6. So this is at a type that you need to use the box or FOIL. So then I'm really going to have the same thing on both sides. So x to the first times x to the first is going to give me x squared. 6 times x is going to give me 6x. 6 times x is going to give me 6x. And then 6 times 6 is going to give me 36. So to start off with, I have x squared. And then I have 6x and 6x. I can combine those two like terms. So that's going to become 12x plus 36. So that's my final answer for number 5. Okay, let's take a look at number 6. Number 6 is going to be the same thing. I'm going to have x minus 2 times x minus 2. Again, not just distributing that squared in. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my box. So I'm going to have x minus 2, x minus 2. And then I have x squared minus 2x, and negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. So now I need to write that out. So I'm going to have x squared, and when I add negative 2x plus negative 2x, negative 2 plus negative 2 is a negative 4. It's not going to make it positive. When you add two negative numbers, they get more negative. And then my last constant is going to be 4. So that's my final answer for number 6. Okay. So now let's just talk a little bit about when you're multiplying more than binomials. So let's say you have something more than two binomials being multiplied together. So binomial means two terms. Okay, so the FOIL method isn't going to work for that, so we have to use the box method. So that's why I just tend to stick to the box method from the start. So when it comes to a problem like these, I'm a little bit more comfortable. So let's take a look at number 7. I notice I have a 2 times a 3. So I have a binomial times a trinomial. So that means I need to have a 2 by 3 box. So I have 4x and 9, and then I have 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. So now I'm still multiplying into the box. Okay, so then this guy times this guy goes in that first box. So 4 times 2 is 8. X to the first times x squared is going to give me x to the third, going in that top box. 4 times a negative 5 is a negative 20. And then x to the first times x to the first is going to give me x squared. Okay. 4 times 3 is 12. and that's going to give us an x with that. 9 times 2 is 18, and then we're going to put our x with that, so we're going to have the x squared. 9 times a negative 5 is a negative 45x. Okay, then 9 times 3 is 27. So remember what I told you guys earlier, that the diagonals tend to have matching terms. So you'll notice this right here is a like term, and that right there is a like term. So I'm going to start, and I have 8x cubed. And then here I have negative 20x squared plus 18x squared. That's going to give me a negative 2x squared. And the answer is negative because the larger of the two numbers is negative itself. And then I'm going to have 12x plus a negative 45x. So that's really like, 12 minus 45. And so that's going to give you a negative 33x. And then at the very end, I have 27. Now remember the last part of the direction said that your answer needs to be in standard form. So at the end, you should be checking that your exponents are going in descending order and that you have your constant there at the end. So let's go ahead and let's take a look and set up this next box. Again, we're going to have 2 by 3. So I have 3x minus 5 here, and then here I have 2x squared, 7x, and then here I'm going to have minus 8. So now we're ready to multiply into that box. So 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. That's hard to see. 6. And then x to the first times x squared is going to give me x cubed. And then 3 times 7 is 21. X to the first times x to the first is x squared. 3 times negative 8 is a negative 24. And then we're going to go ahead and tack on that x with it. 5 times 2 is going to give me a negative 10, since it's a negative 5. And then we're going to tack on the x squared with it. Negative 5 times 7 is a negative 35. And then again, we want to tack the x on with it. And then negative 5 times negative 8 is 40. So again, we want to look down those diagonals. So we have like terms here and like terms here. So let's go ahead and let's write that out. So for starters, we're going to have 6x cubed. And then I'm going to have negative 10x squared plus 21x squared. So when I add those together, I get 11x squared. Again, not adding the exponents, just the numbers out in front. Negative 24x plus minus 35x. So since they're both negative, it's going to get more negative, and we're going to get a negative 59x. And then last but not least, we're going to add on that 40. So since my exponents are going in descending order, that represents standard form. So now our answer is complete. Okay, so first thing I need to do, I see this 5 on the outside. So first thing I need to do is to distribute the 5 into one of them, not both of them. So in this first parenthesis is going to become 5y squared minus 10y plus 25. And then we're going to multiply it by that guy right there. So now, since I have a 3 by 3, I need to set up a 3 by 3 box. Beautiful, right? I know, I did a great job. So here I'm going to have 5y squared. Again, this could go across the top if you wanted to. It doesn't matter which side you put it on. And then here, 6y squared minus 3y and 1. So now I need to multiply into my box, okay? So 5 times 6 is 30. And then we're going to have y to the 4th, because I'm doing y squared times y squared. So when I'm multiplying, I can add those exponents. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. And then y to the first times y squared is y to the 3rd. 5 times 1 is 5, and then we're going to have y squared. And then looking at the next one, negative 10 times 6 is negative 60. And then y squared times y to the first is going to give me y cubed. Negative 10 times negative 3 is a positive 30. And then y to the first times y to the first is y squared. Then negative 10y times 1 is just going to be a negative 10y. 25 times 6 is going to give me 150. And then y squared. And negative 3y times 25 is a negative 75y. And then 25 times 1 is just 25. So again, these diagonals represent your like terms. So we have 6, y to the fourth. And then I can take 15y to the third minus 60, sorry, they're both negative. Negative 15y to the third minus 60y to the third, which is going to give us negative 75y to the third. Then positive 5y squared plus 30y squared plus 150y squared is actually going to give us 185y squared. Okay, then I'm going to have negative 10y minus 75y, so that's going to be a negative 85y, and then I'm going to add on that 25 there at the end. So that right there is your final answer for this problem. Okay, so let's take a look at number 10. So for number 10, I'm going to make my box. So it's going to be 3 by 3. So I'm going to have m squared, 2m, and negative 3. Here, 4m squared minus 7m, and then 5. So 4 and then m squared times m squared is m to the fourth. M squared times negative 7m, well, that negative 7 is going to stay the same. M to the first times m squared is m cubed. 5 times m squared is going to give me 5m squared. 2 times 4 is going to give me 8. M to the first times m squared is m cubed. 2 times negative 7 is a negative 14. M to the first times m to the first is m squared. 2 times 5 is 10, and then you're going to get m. Negative 3 times 4 is a negative 12, and then you're going to get m squared. And then negative 3 times negative 7 is a positive 21, and then you're going to get m. Negative 3 times 5 is a negative 15. So starting off, we have 4m to the fourth. And then going down that diagonal, I have negative 7m cubed plus 8m cubed. Well, that's just going to add up to be m cubed. Here I have 5m squared minus 18m squared, minus 14m squared, so that's going to be a negative 9m squared, minus 12m squared is going to give me a negative 19m squared. And then here I'm going to have 10m plus 21m, which is going to give me a positive 31m, and then I'm going to have that negative 15 at the end. So after all that work, that's the final answer when you multiply those three together. Last but not least, let's take a look at number 11. The area of a triangle is half of the base times the height. So it wants us to find an expression that represents the area. Well, the base is going to be 2x plus 3, and the height is 3x minus 1. So for starters, I want to distribute that 1/2 in. So then I'm going to get 2 times 1/2 is the same as 2 divided by 2, so that's just x. Plus, and then that's going to be a 3/2, and that's going to be multiplied times 3x minus 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's set that up into our box. Okay, so when we do that, I'm going to make my box. And this time it's just going to be 2 by 2. So I'm going to have x and 3/2. Remember, again, that could go down the side vertically if we want. And then 3x minus 1. So 3x to the first times x to the first is 3x squared. 3x times 3/2 x, well, we need to multiply the 3 and the 3. So that's going to be a 9, and then the 2 is going to stay there. And we also need to bring the x along with it. Negative 1 times x is a negative x, or you could write a negative 1x. Both are acceptable. And then negative 2 times 3/2, or negative 1 times 3/2 is just a negative 3/2. So then I'm going to have 3x squared plus 9/2 x, and what I'm going to do is write this negative 1x as negative 2 over 2x, because it means the same thing, but then I have a common denominator right there. So this, I'm going to have 3x squared, and now I have 9 minus, or is this a negative 9? Yes, this should be a negative, and this should have been negative altogether, so that should be positive. So since these are both negative, negative 9 minus 2 is going to give me a negative 11 over 2. Remember, when you add fractions, you only add the top, and then it's going to be plus 3/2. So the mistake I made is I forgot to write the negative 3/2 there. So that's your final answer. And that concludes your video. Thanks for listening.